Welcome to the Elevating Voices in Leadership podcast, brought to you in partnership with Pepperdine University's Graduate School of Education. I'm Dr. Gabriela Miramontes, and I will be your host. With me today are my co-hosts. We have Dr. Maria Brame, Dr. Asia Ghazi, Dr. Sonia Sharifufard, Dr. Charlotta Green, and Dr. Dorn, the GSEP Director of Alumni Relations, is here today as well. She will also be part of our panel. Our esteemed guest today is Dr. Ed Eng. Dr. Ed Eng is currently a council member for La Mirada, a city of 50,000 residents. He is a consultant, business professor, and former senior executive at a Fortune 300 company. Additionally, he was a board member for a Fortune 100 company as well as several startups. Dr. Eng holds a doctorate in organizational leadership, an MBA, an MS, and a BS in engineering. The Accidental Mayor, written by Dr. Eng, who is a former LA Times publishing executive and mayor of La Mirada, has just concluded a successful book launch on Amazon, with the book ranked as #1 bestseller in multiple categories. The Accidental Mayor explores the Asian American immigrant journey from the streets of Chinatown, LA, to the unexpected boardrooms of American politics and corporate bureaucracy. Dr. Ed retells stories from his early life surviving gang violence through basketball and humor to his experiences as an engineer, executive, and father that all led him to become the first Asian mayor of the city of La Mirada. The Accidental Mayor illustrates how difficult it is to immediately understand why things in life happen the way they do. Dr. Ed unpacks universal themes of perseverance, relationships, love, hardship, and empathy. To empathize that only in hindsight does the opacity of our ups and downs become more clear. So thank you, Dr. Ed, for joining us today. We're very excited to have this conversation and to have you as part of the Pepperdine community, as always.
Yeah, I'm just so glad to be here, and thank you for that introduction. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So tell us a little bit about your journey and what resulted in the book and how that all came about.
Yeah, so I've been working on this book for 3 years while I was in the doctorate program. And at the beginning, I just wanted to inform the world that the Asian American journey and in general, the immigrant story is not universal, that we all have a story to tell. And I just wanted to inform the world that there are a lot of layers to it. People look at the minority myth, how successful minorities are, and automatically they think we don't work that hard. We just got to where we are by accident. But I wanted to tell the world that we have a unique story to tell, and we do have a responsibility to tell that story. There are just so many layers to our story that I just wanted to peel the layers back to tell my story, which is really about Asian Americans growing up in the 70s. And in my case, just growing up in Chinatown, gang-infested environment, very volatile, uncertainty, complexity, you name it, I went through it. And if you asked me 40 years ago whether or not I would become a mayor of a city or a Fortune 300 executive, I said, no, you're dreaming. Dreams like that are not for people like me. But my defining moments, which is told through my stories, involves perseverance, involve love, family, and having a conviction, purpose. And it just shows how difficult it is to really try to look for answers when you're in that moment against headwind. So my lesson, the universal theme is really don't look for answers when you're facing obstacles, look for lessons. And it's only in hindsight that we see clarity. And eventually you're going to see all the pictures, all the lessons come together in a beautiful portrait. And that's kind of my story. So I started wanting to inform the world, the immigrants, the Asian American immigrant story. Then halfway through, I just wanted to immortalize my parents, the sacrifice they went through, so I can have the life I have today. And thirdly, finally, to inspire the world.
Wow, thank you for that. So you talk about lessons. And not to take away from your book, but can you share briefly what some of those lessons have been, or any points of wisdom you can share with us here at the podcast?
So if you look at the cover of my book, I spent about 3 months designing the book cover. There's a little boy in red 8-year-old me sitting on the shoulder of the 60-year-old me. And the first lesson is basically on the cover of the book. I was weak, I was always sickly, and I was always picked last for any physical sports. And most people don't see the value in them until much later. Although at the time didn't see any value in me, but looking back now, I had a lot of value. You know what? My value was I was great at cheerleading. Everybody wanted me because I cheer people on, even though I was weak and I was a handicap. I always made the team weaker by being on any team, but my value was bringing people together. I didn't see it then, but I saw it 60 years later when I reflect back. So the first lesson is everyone has a unique value, but we need a mentor or someone to point it out to them. That's the first lesson, that we all have value. And a lot of us, we will let our weakness define who we are, but that's not our identity. We can grow out of that. So I grew up in poverty, and that could be a weakness, but I use that as my ambition and drive to take advantage of every opportunity presented to me. I went through a lot of pain, mostly physical pain, because I was really weak and I grew up in a gang-infested environment, very volatile, and I got beat up, bullied a lot, and I wanted to go home. I didn't want to come to a country that didn't want me. I was really upset. One of my favorite chapters in the book is called A Whiteout. I just wanted to go home. There were a lot of favorite chapters, but I went through a lot of pain. But in retrospect, that gave me the resilience and perseverance and the grit that I needed to overcome obstacles. Finally, I think my family, I felt, didn't have a voice in society. My parents each worked 2 jobs. My mom was a seamstress. My dad was a dishwasher and custodian. They worked menial jobs forever to give me the life I wanted today. But I felt like my whole family just didn't have a voice. So the drive to have a voice and to make an impact in the world gave me a purpose. So those are some of the universal themes. And the last one is, there's no way anyone who tells you that they did it alone is lying to you. I just think no one can do it alone. We live in an interdependent world, and I could not be where I am today without family, love, friends, teachers, mentors who gave me a hand along the way. So those are the 4 universal themes in my book throughout, and I think there are 18 chapters, and each one is a lesson. There's a universal theme, there's sub lesson in each one, but those are the ones that came to mind, and those are the ones that are most prominent throughout the book.
Wow, that's amazing. You speak a lot of your resilience, and just kind of how that it sounds like you built it over time, that you had to overcome your own kind of mindset. How did you get there? What contributed to that resilience, if you will?
So it started just watching my parents. My dad, well, let me go back a little bit in history. So my dad was a sergeant in Hong Kong, and we lived in a police dormitory, 600 square feet with 10 of us living in a home. But even though we grew up in poverty, but I felt really safe, and that was my home. I never felt we were poor until we came to America. That's when I felt we were just really, really poor. And watching my parents struggle and sacrifice their entire lives so we can have the life we want today really was the first step toward that. And I really didn't know how to repay them, except I said, I just gotta be the best version of myself and make something of myself to make my family proud. So that was the first lesson. The second lesson is really right from the start, I was just getting beat up so bad. I wanted to go home so bad, to the point where I was put in a hospital. And I said, you know what? I haven't even proven my worth to the world, and I'm adding more burden to my parents. So I have 2 choices. One is I can whine and go home, or I suck it up and get a job. So I was just gonna get a job and just help out my family of nine of us. All of us just wanted to get a job to help out my parents. But one of my teachers said, no, you're applying to college. And I said, they're not for people like me. In fact, my family, we can't even afford the application fee. She said, you can pick one school. I'll pay for the application fee. The only school I heard of was UCLA and USC, the only 2 schools. And I chose UCLA because it was a cheaper tuition. And when I got in, I just felt like my whole world has changed. So education became my foundation. And that was the start of perseverance. And the third thing is when I lost my first job, the world just came crumbling down on me. And we can actually melt under pressure, or we can become stronger. And I just remember taking a field trip somewhere to watch, I think, sword making at one point. And I just felt like, you know what, the sword is made under intense heat. And that's the analogy I always use, that diamonds are made under pressure and our characters are built when our backs are against the wall. So just based on that mantra, I just said, that's how I'm going to do it. And there are so many lessons along the way throughout my book but that's how it got started, is through my parents, then my own life lessons, and my own personal struggle with infertility. I come from a family of nine. My wife comes from a family of six. Thought we're gonna have a big family, but we had infertility trouble, so that my world came crumbling down again. So you really need to dig deep. It's almost like when you work out, it's a mental muscle as well. You just got to build it over time. And without those failures, you will never feel the joy of when you're on top. And I think all those lessons just kind of came in together. And when I look back and said, wow, I learned a valuable lesson in each of those low moments. And that's how I, became mayor of a city. So it wasn't very intentional at all. I never wanted to be a politician, hated politics. And somehow, because of my purpose of having a voice and my perseverance, kind of wanted to change the world. And against all odds, I ran for city council and I came in first place and been there almost going on 9 years now.
Dr. If it's okay, I wanted to ask a question. Dr. Ed, you were talking about politics, and that fascinates me so much because my family has been involved with politics too. So I wanted to know, because of your very background in engineering, in business, consulting, why did you want to go into politics? And did you feel that that would be the best place for you to have your voice heard?
Absolutely not. So it started when I was joking around, talking to a friend of mine and said, I'm going to be a mayor of a city. And she thought I was very serious. So she looked me straight in the eyes and told me solemnly, you first have to get approval from the existing council. You have to get endorsements. You have to show up to council meetings and all of that. And I really felt like it was a slap in my face. I said, my parents didn't have a voice growing up. They finally had a small business and they were bullied into shutting it down. We didn't have a voice. And now you're telling me I cannot run for city council? This is the greatest country on earth. This is democracy at its best. You tell me I have to go kiss everybody's ring and bow to everybody before I run? She said, precisely. I won't put it that way, but yes. I said, no way. So it was around Thanksgiving. I was really quiet at dinner and my wife asked me what's wrong. And so I told her I'm going to run for city council. And she pretty much fell off her chair and said, you are not the political type. You hate politics. I said, yeah, but I felt like it's a slap in my family's name. If I lose, I lose, but I'm going to run. So the election was in March and no one ever runs for elected official position with 3 months to go. But I did. And Lord willing, all the obstacles I went through, which is described in section 5 of my book, I came in first place. So I just feel like, okay, that's my platform to speak for those who don't have a voice, to represent the people like me who never had a voice growing up, and now I want to give them a voice. So that was my platform for 8 years. And now I'm thinking, I'm very well known in La Mirada, 50,000 residents. But outside of La Mirada, who really knows me? So I said, I want a bigger platform to reach the world. So I wrote a book.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my journey. Writing the book. I just want a bigger platform. I already made a commitment, 100% of the net proceeds go toward charities. I'm going to start with the library and then Meals on Wheels. There are a lot of charities close to my heart. I already have that foundation, but hopefully I can really add to it. But that's kind of my journey. That's why it's an accidental mayor. Those who know me from college, my friends, were shocked that I was running for to be a council member in my city. But it was just really, I had a purpose. I wanted a voice, and people told me I felt like they were dismissing my voice, and I was not going to let that happen again. It's just not going to happen.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you so much for that. It's so inspiring and so fun to hear too. I know that a lot of our students and alumni want to write books. We hear that from them, and they often don't really know how to get started. I have a couple of questions for you about book writing. So first of all, did you have a specific audience? Were you writing this book for someone in particular, like your family, or yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
So I'm a business person. My background is business. So the first rule in business is called a product market fit. That's the formula. There's a formula called FOCUS, FOCUS is an acronym for, I forgot what it stands for. But the first step you do is you can write a book and you're going to sell, maybe if you're well liked by family and friends, you're going to sell about 50 books. So you got to make sure you identify people who will buy your book. And for me, it's almost like digital media, digital marketing. You got to have a tribe. You got to have a target audience that you know will buy your product, that products or service that you sell. So I believe you need to identify, at least this is just my way of thinking, you need to identify 200 people who will buy your book. Because if you hit 200, then at least you have a core tribe. And then you have to layer in the rest of the market, how big you can build this thing out. So for me, it was start at the lowest level was my city. I know I can, family and friends, and based on my reputation, I know I can sell 200. The second layer is really, I look at it outside of city of Mirada and family and friends. Who is that secondary audience? Then I look at it, it's any immigrant that I don't care what race or ethnicity you are, Asian, African American, I don't care what it is. We all have a unique story to tell. So that's the second layer. The third one is anyone who needs inspiration to get to the next step, and if they're in a headwind or if they feel like they're in a funk, they can't get out of their circumstances, that's the biggest audience. Will I ever get to the third level? I hope so, but I already cracked the first level and I only executed 10% of my marketing plan. And there's 90% to go, and I already made bestseller. And finally, once you identify the audience, I'm going to ask you, you have to be more interesting than your reader. Okay, you just got to be more interesting. We all have a story. Unfortunately, in academic writing, it's very different than writing a book. It's completely different. You would tell me anyone who is getting their PhD or got their PhD or doctorate can write a novel. I'm going to say academic writing is the most boring writing in the world. I took one class, and this professor, I love this professor. He is famous for saying "says who." I think you guys all know who I'm talking about. And I used to hate it. Because I am a Fortune 300 executive. You know, I ran a unit of 1,000 people. I said, I'm a mayor of a city. I know what I'm talking about, but says who? So if you can't cite who said it before you, it's not good enough. So I had a hard time starting the book. My first draft, I let my son and my wife read it. They said, you have a good theme, but I'm falling asleep. I don't want to read it anymore. And then it took me probably a year and a half to 2 years of editing. Finally, I just said, I'm getting rid of my academic training for writing a dissertation. I'm just going to write with my voice. And I just wrote it and I edited it, and then I hired an editor. So it's a process in itself. But the first step, I think, is you need a product, a product market fit. Go through that exercise. Then once you have an identified, now you have a goal, a purpose to reach your audience. but you just got to be interesting and write with voice. It's not academic writing. It's about who you are, your personality, your uniqueness. So it's hard to develop that when you're in a PhD program, a doctorate program. I gotta say, I struggle in a doctorate program. I did my writing. I felt like I had to change my entire style, but I was able to gain my voice back when I wrote the book.
I love that. And I think that is so true to the experience of students in academia. Finding your scholarly voice is really challenging and not necessarily fun by any stretch of the imagination. And so, but I'd love to hear more about the whole process. So when you started writing, did you have a picture of the whole book, where it was going to start and where it was going to end? Did you have like a framework with an outline with chapters or anything like that?
Yes. So I always recommend, I think a lot of my former classmates, all after the book launch, they all call me, text me, how did you get started and everything. And the first question I ask is, how many of you read an entire dissertation, one of your friends' dissertation beginning to the end? Nobody. They all read the beginning and that was it, because the person that wrote the dissertation is important to them. But who's the audience? It goes back to the market product fit. So my style was, you create an outline. I don't care what it is, you create the theme. Each chapter has got to have a theme. It's got to be, I call it the bookend. What do you want to write about? What is the call to action? Okay, who's the audience? Do all that. Then you fill in the stories. But my rule of thumb is this: if you don't cry in your own book, then you're not very interesting.
Oh,
that's just my rule of thumb. And I cry like crazy. And believe me, I speak a lot because I'm a mayor of my city. I've been invited. I almost speak once or twice a week. And I've gotten a reputation. I cry every time I speak. I just do. I'm an emotional type. And I am very sensitive from that standpoint. So, and I joke to people, there are 3 buckets of tears I cry, and I really have. Each time I read it I cry. When people tell me I made them cry, I cry with them. And I'm just that's how I write. So I don't think, if you're writing and you're not emotional about it, if you can't cry at your own story, then other people won't cry. So people's got to feel your emotions, deep down your emotions. And that's how I wrote it. I cried when I wrote. I went back and cried again. And I have my first book signing. There's 3 of them scheduled. My first one is a more private one. And I know I'm going to cry, but it's okay. Kind of known for that by now. But I just believe in that. You just got to have the emotions, and you got to be engaging, and you got to be interesting. And we all have an interesting story. You just got to tell it.
I love that. And that is just, I love all of what you said, and especially the emotion and how much feeling you put into it. Yes, absolutely. So cool. I have one last question, then I'll release you to my colleagues here. But so you mentioned that you got an editor. What made you decide to get an editor, and how did you find one?
Yeah, so I met a person named Lisa C. I didn't know who she was. S-E-E is the last name. And then this person who introduced me said, "You don't know Lisa C? She's has 3 or 4 books, New York Times bestseller." I said, "What? I'm meeting her? And you know her that well?" He goes, "Yes, we serve on the same board." I thought it's going to take a while. And next thing you know, she called me and said, "How can I help you?" I said, "Can you write a testimonial for my book?" She goes, "It depends." She said, "Who's your editor?" And I said, "I don't have one. I'm self-publishing." And she said, "Well, I never do it without it." Because she said, regardless of how great you are, writer you are, we are all humans and we make errors. So unless you have an editor go through it, unless you have a publisher, I will not give you a testimony. So I said, okay, how bad do I want a testimony? Well, New York Times bestseller, yes, I do want it. So I hired an editor and went through it. And through the process of that, even though it came back 100% correct, when I read it, I found more errors. I sent it back. You didn't do a good job. It came back, I found more errors. So I've got to hire a second editor to go through it. She found more errors. So I went through it myself. I found more errors. So it's just human beings, you know what? We're going to make errors. So when I was done, I called her back and say, okay, I have a publisher now. And I have went through 2 editors, and then she said, well, I just started my book. You took 9 months, and I don't have time to read your book now. So, but that process really forced me to learn the process, and I am better for it, and I'm thankful for it. And without it, I don't think it would have been as engaging as it is, and I would not have made #1 in less than 18 days. So I think I learned a lot, and I'm ready to teach the world, and I'm ready to start my own publishing company to help aspiring authors. That's my next goal. That's next goal, and that's one thing. And then the other one is I really, really want the ultimate goal, and you got to dream big. That's the ambition, the part I talk about being in poverty all my life growing up. I think big, and if I don't get there, but along the way, it's a great journey. So my dream is to make a movie out of it. If I can, I'm talking to production people who love my book and they want to make a play out of it. So I just have to raise funds in 2023, and something's great's gonna happen. And I can't wait to inspire more people to write their own books and tell their stories.
That is
Sorry, I'm a
so,
little bit passionate, but I'm just really passionate
no,
about
it's
what I'm
so
doing.
exciting to hear. And I love your energy. Just even listening to you talk about it is so moving and exciting. And I lied. I have one more question.
Sure, absolutely.
So yeah, because we get so many questions from our students about this, and this is so helpful in so many ways. So you mentioned you were going to self-publish, but then you found a publisher. Is that right? Did I get that
Yes.
right? So how
Yes.
did that work?
So it kind of worked out, but I hire what I call a hybrid publisher because I didn't want to lose control, because a full publisher would tell you what's good, what's not, and how to write it. I said, no, this is my story. So I found a hybrid publisher that helped me launch the book, but the rest is after Amazon takes all their royalties, I'm left with a little bit less than half, but I wanted total artistic control. So I know I'm going to be talking to Dr. Sonia's class in a couple of weeks, in about 3 or 4 weeks. And I broke it down. I'll create, all the transfer, all the learning. So basically, Dr. Brahme, you talk about the process. So for me, it's the outline. To me, it's the most heart-wrenching stories, the lessons learned. And then as more stories come out, you just kind of fit it in. And the third one is the marketing plan and the book cover, and even putting your book on the Amazon platform is an art in itself, all the formatting and stuff. So there are actually 5 areas that I break down to help people do that. So it's a very intense process, but when you're done, it's, to me, you're just immortalizing yourself and your family and your legacy. To me, everyone needs to write a book. Everyone needs to do it. And I'm sure if I were to spend an hour with each one of you offline, and each one of you will have a beautiful, unique story that, maybe what I'll do is I'll write a book. I'm kind of thinking about a book called Second Chances, because I have a couple stories. It's about other people. So I'm thinking about that. I have about 3 or 4 ideas for my next book.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for those questions. Appreciate it.
Would you like to turn being an author into a full-time job, getting out of politics and just becoming an author and traveling and turning your books into movies?
Yes, because when I'm done with this last term, it'll be a decade. And I think, and I can say this proudly and said, I own most of the innovations in my city because of my business background. I'm the only one. I teach innovation as part of my consulting course. There's a whole lecture on innovation, so I know how to look for innovations. And thank you, Dr. Miramontes, for partnering with me. That's another way to change lives. So I think after a decade of being in politics, I would want to travel and just meet interesting people and write about their stories, number one. Number two, I do want to take the next step artistically to make movies and productions. And then finally, I just want to meet interesting people and tell other people's stories. I haven't thought about what I want to do. I started teaching at Cal State LA, and yesterday was my last class. And it just brought tears to my eyes. I walked in, there were donuts and coffee because people know I love donuts. And the students brought me donuts, and they signed this big giant card. And I cried right there and then. I read every one of them when they were taking their finals. And I still want to be involved in teaching at some capacity because that is a passion. I just want 3 platforms to impact as many people as possible. And mentoring is definitely one of them because I was mentored along the way. And without the mentors in my life, I wouldn't be where I am. So that is definitely, you got to give back. And then the other one is really giving people hope, giving them a chance to say, this is, Ed Ing was there. If he can get out of there, you know what, I should be able to do that too. These are just universal lessons, and adopting a mindset that you just don't give up. You just got to have perseverance, and that you look for lessons, not answers. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself crazy and live with no regrets.
I'm listening to you, and you're talking about all the things that you've been doing and all the things that you want to do next. So, and I know some people, when they hear this, they're going to say, I have ideas, but I just don't know if I can do it. I just don't know what my next step would be or how to go about even going further than what I'm doing right now. So how is it that you have the gumption or have the energy or just so, I guess, in your heart is just pushed to do that next thing? What
Great
is it
question.
in you that makes you not afraid to take that next step to do something new?
Dr. Thorne, thank you for that question, because people say you grew up in poverty, so you're naturally in a disadvantage, or your circumstances hold you back. I don't have the time. I'm in a PhD program. I work, so I can't. I'm turning in my homework late. You know what? Life is never even, but
Right.
life will catch up to you. To me, if you've never gone through the lows, you would never appreciate the highs in your life. So for me, I came to this country. I wanted to go home. And along the way, I just felt like, if I give up now, who am I? Who
Right.
am I? So actually, growing up in poverty in that condition really gave me the ambition. And ambitions, it doesn't mean that I want to be just one thing. Ambition is really taking advantage of opportunities. To me, that's what ambition means, opportunities. And I really believe that one of the most critical stages is living a fulfilled life. When your potential is fulfilled, a lot of people are stressed because they feel like, I'm not reaching my potential. And I said, yeah, because you're not taking that first step, and you're going to fail. Just factor in failure as part of your life journey anyways, because no one's going to be successful anytime, all the time. You're
Right.
going to go through failures. But if you factor that in, it's coming, there's a lesson learned. And maybe not now, but 5 years from now, if you look back, you will understand what that failure does, what that lesson, how it's going to come back to help you. So you factor that in. I never look at, I don't have money, or if I have more time, I just say, take the first step. Take the first step. And along the way, once you have the energy and passion, you're going to attract like-minded people who want to partner up with you. And this happened every time so far. So I got to say, with that mindset moving forward, it's very, very easy to take that first step and just say, I'm just going to try it. Believe me, I'm not a good writer. I'm a business writer. I write in bullets. I'm an executive. I have people working for me, but when I had to write the book, I just said, how am I going to get through a book? I barely got through my doctorate program. I'm a horrible writer. But along the way, when people are sleeping at 10 o'clock, watching the news, I'm sitting down writing. I'm looking up, redoing research, how to write a better thesis sentence, how to write a better opening sentence, how do I factor in emotions? And you just try it. You just take the first step. And I just think that I have so much potential left that I haven't fulfilled yet, that I'm willing to try it. I know I'm going to fail, but the failure is good. I don't mind failing. So that's kind of the mindset. And I know that along the way, people quit because they don't have grit or perseverance, because that's the easiest thing to do. Dr. Ghazi and I are friends on Facebook, and also LinkedIn. And I follow her. I see her posting. She's busy. I mean, she's busy. And sometimes I read her stuff and I feel her pain, but I don't think she's given up. I mean, you see her little by little. Sometimes you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and I tell people that's okay. That is definitely okay because, man, 5 years from now, you're gonna glad you did it. So to me, it's a first step and factoring in failure in your life and enjoy the journey because it is a beautiful journey. But we can only see that in retrospect, in hindsight, because if you look for answers now, you just drive yourself crazy.
So I can definitely see the cheerleader in you. I can
Yes,
see the
thank you.
motivational speaker in you as well. Like I'm hearing, and it's like, you know, you're the whole mindset piece is very energizing. Your message is very energizing. So just wanted to kind of bring that to the forefront. So you know, we've had multiple conversations in this group about mentorship and you know, that whole, how do you support people? If you had recommendations or if you had advice, because at the beginning you said, you know, success, we don't do success alone. I always tell my students the same thing, right?
Never.
Your accomplishments are your own, but you didn't get there alone. So do you have any advice for individuals that are kind of stuck or are struggling, or where they can get mentored, where you know they can tap into some of that motivational component or finding cheerleaders of their own?
Yeah, I would say for anybody, and I learned this the hard way because I learned it real late in life. Everyone needs a board of mentors. People say board of directors. What is a board of mentors? You need 3 circles of layers of support. And the largest layer is, I mean, I look at my phone, I have more than 2,000 contacts, but out of the 2,000, you know, how many are really friends? So I always say those are my acquaintances. But who do I really call? There's about 10 to 15 people I call. That's my network of friends. But who can I call to give me unfiltered advice, honesty, and who's going to be your cheerleader? And to your point, Dr. Miramontes, it's really a coach will tell you what to do, but a mentor will talk about you, not talk to you, but they will talk about you. So who is it that will be your cheerleader? And if you can identify 5 people, you're going to be successful. I call that the board of mentorship because you need 5 different areas in life where you need advice on: relationship, career, you know, techniques, how to motivate yourself. So you need mentors in every aspect of your life. But who are those people that you can think of? And the first step is you got to reach out. And I'm sure when I look at each one of you, people reach out to you. I know you're busy. I know you're 24/7 is already booked, but I can guarantee you every one of you here will make time. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but maybe a month later, you will meet with this person. And it's all a matter of that connection. Sometimes you say, well, this mentor is not for me because you know, we're just think too different. But I guarantee you, you just reach out, especially when you're alumni, when you have that Pepperdine connection, that UCLA connection. I'm a Bruin at heart, yes. And people call you. Successful people are willing to help other people because they know that they will help along the way. And people don't take that first step. So when I teach a strategic management at Cal CLA, and I teach organizational change and organizational development and change. And part of my lecture is really how to help students be successful and not so focused on the theory that, you know, they have to memorize to get an A in the class. So there are more life systems and practicality involved. So yeah, so the first step is really reach out, look at your Rolodex and start building those concentric circles, and which 5 people you think you can help you, and reach out to them. You know, there's no way people aren't going to come to you if you don't grab, you know, you don't grab the opportunity and not be afraid of rejection. It's not going to come to you. You just got to take that first step and email Dr. Miramontes. I love what you're doing with the global partnership. I have this idea. Can we talk? And that's how Dr. Miramontes and I started. In my very first orientation, I went to, is it Dean now? Dean Majidi, right? So I went to Dean Majidi and said, I have this great idea. I want to partner up with Pepperdine, but not right now, but maybe the week when I graduate. He goes, yeah, just circle back with me. And I reminded him after I graduated, and he said, talk to Dr. Miramontes. She's in charge of this global partnership. I'll be outside the circle. If you need help, just call me. So Dr. Miramontes and I, we talked, and we basically said we all believe in the same thing. We started with the highest level, the purpose. We're impacting students' lives. And number two, how do we integrate practicality into theory? And the third one is, how do we make it affordable, and how do we make it so we can give back to Pepperdine, and I make a little bit of money, but the student will make it all back. So those were the three layers we talked about. I didn't think Dr. Miramontes was going to call me back immediately, but we talked about it immediately. And part of that program, and I'm not really plugging that program, but part of that program is we become coaches for life to them because we're part of the Pepperdine family. So I would say, to your point, a long way of saying is, don't be afraid of rejection. Take that first step, and you're going to find that board of mentorship that I was referring to.
Thank you for that. It's that whole, what's the worst people can say? No, right? And so, yeah.
Yeah, I just think of it this way. When I'm a mayor of a city, I know as long as I have 51% of the people who like me, I'm fine. You can't please everybody, and rejection is part of life. We're not going to be well-liked. We're not going to connect with everyone we meet. So build that in, factor that into your journey, and you're going to just have less stress. But the important thing is, when a mentor is willing to meet with you, you got to have your core values so that they're aligned with your mentor. That is the important part. One of the questions I always ask is, you're a mayor of a city, and yet you're also a Fortune 300 executive. So how do you make that transition to be a business executive to a leader of a city? And I always tell them, start with your core values. My core values have not changed from people. It's always around trust. It's around focus on people. It's around creating a safe environment and giving everyone on my team a voice. So that has not changed. So part of that is really, before you reach out to your mentor, you have to do some soul searching on who you are. What your likes are, what your values are, what your operating values are. What's important to you, who are you, can you answer those life questions first? Then when you meet with your mentor, they will know who you are, because without that, it's hard to make that connection.
I have to say it's so beautiful listening to all this. Pepperdine's mission is to suddenly it's about creating student lives of purpose, service, and leadership. And you are just so embody that mission. Your work really reflects exactly what Pepperdine is in the business of doing for students and for our community and for the world. And so I have loved listening to all of this. And can you talk a little bit more about, you talked about wanting to publish? Wanting to have a publishing company.
Yes.
Do you have somewhat of a vision of
yes,
that?
I do. So I'll address both part. I'm not sure the first part's a question, but I just want to let you know the purpose, service, because I ask a lot about this. How does that all play together? Because I work with a couple of professors at Pepperdine. They always bring that up, and I always push them a little and say, what does that mean to you? So everybody come up with different answers, and I tell them it's got to be very clear. So before I partner with them on this thing, I said, all three is not about yourself. Purpose is about other people. Service is about other people. Leadership is about multiplying capabilities of other people. So unless we all align and subscribe to that, we'll never be able to partner together. So I just want to address that. Thank you for bringing that up, because I really think that's an important mission of Pepperdine, but people will have to be able to break it down. We can say it in different ways, but it all has to mean the same thing. It's about serving. It's about other people, not ourselves. If we focus on other people, the world will just be a better place, and our legacy will multiply as well. So I just want to address that first. So my publishing company is, now I understand the process. What I want to do is plug in people that want to write a book, and let's just go through it. A publishing company is really helping first-time authors how to publish a book. I do the coaching, the mentorship. To your questions earlier, I want to ask about your market product fit. If you can't answer that, we don't move to the next step. So it is a progression of steps to move from step 1 to step 6. And I do have a website, a business website. I'm building it. It's already up. It's either dredding.com or theaccidentalmayor.com. It takes you to the same URL, to the same website. But I'm building a new page called Publishing, helping first-time authors. So the vision is really helping anyone that wants to publish a book, either a memoir. I'm not good at fiction, but a non-fictional book, and really helping people find themselves, find their voice, and tell their stories in a very unique and engaging way. Because that's what I am. I just believe that leadership, the language of leadership, the currency of leadership, the currency of leadership is people, but the language is storytelling. So we do have to build that storytelling capability and not be afraid to tell your stories. Believe me, when I launched the book, I felt so naked and vulnerable. I just felt like my whole world is out there for people to judge. But through all the feedback, I've gotten stronger and stronger. And now I'm glad I was vulnerable because I was able to tell my story in the way that I wanted to. But it's very vulnerable to write a memoir or an autobiography. So those are some of the mindset we have to overcome. You have to be vulnerable, you have to be emotional, and you really got to have thick skin and really want to tell your story. But once you get over that, you're going to have the most beautiful and unique story people have ever heard of, because we are so unique, but we just got to find that voice in us and take that first step and fulfill your potential. That's what I believe in. So that's kind of the vision. I don't have a mission statement yet for my publishing company, but it's really about helping first-time author find their voice, integrate the business side of it, because you can't do, if you're going to spend 2 years to write a book and you sell 100 books, you're wasting your time. You got to sell 2,000 books, 20,000 books. And I help you create a marketing plan. I force you to break down your friendships and who you can sell to, because unless you have those business metrics built in, you're just writing a book that may not sell. But this will at least get you to the probability closer to selling more books. So that's kind of the vision, integrate all the lessons I've learned from the business standpoint, which is to sell more books, identify your audience. And the second piece is really taking you the progression of telling your story, overcome the mindset. Then once you get to pass those 2 steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, all the way through step 6.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And just a small note, since I'm a librarian for GSEP, then I definitely look forward to a partnership where we bring all of your publications into the library and feature them as alumni.
To your point, I'm actually donating to LA County. Actually saw my book and it's trending pretty fast
I bet.
right now. So I guess there's an algorithm that on Amazon that's bringing my book up right now because it was a bestseller. So I found out through the process, I can donate 2 books to any library and they'll catalog it, but I have to donate it. And I said, great. So I just order 100 of them, and I'm going to hit up 50 libraries and then host author talks. And another secondary vision, a complementary or secondary vision is to really host a series of authors talk, an hour, just talk about their motivation, their purpose, and how they got to where they are, just so that we have more authors telling their stories. That's kind of the secondary complementary mission, purpose. But yeah, I am going to donate 2 books to, if you want it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was told that's a process. You got to donate 2 books before they catalog it. But I would love to do that. You know what, bring in more authors to talk about their stories so that aspiring authors can relate to or connect with somebody and say, you know what, that's my mentor. I want to go talk to that person. The criteria for that author series is you have to be willing to mentor someone.
Oh, excellent. Oh, that's so cool. Wonderful.
Yeah. So that's kind of the mission of my vision of the publishing side.
Thank you.
So I'm noticing in the comments that you already have 2 or 3 people that are willing to publish with you. So just so you know, um, we're
Comments.
winding.
I have to
I'm
look at
sorry?
the comments. No,
Oh.
I just have to find the comments. Just because I am on a second, this computer, I
Multiple
have,
screens, right?
no, yeah, well, multiple screens, and I have 4 systems, because I have 4 jobs, right? I run the city. I'm an advisor to the government, and I'm a professor, adjunct professor, and I'm also have a separate system that manages my website, which is for my book and stuff. So sometimes I say, okay, what system am I on? So I have to look for all the buttons on here. So I didn't check the chat box. But so far, I have to say, I didn't think it would happen this fast. I knew that I have a chance. I have a whole marketing plan just for books. I said, here's how I'm going to do it. And, I only executed 10% of that. And it's already hit #1. So I'm very hopeful that I'll reach even more people and impact more people. But I really want to inspire people to write books and not just inspire people to write books, but inspire people who are going through, some unusual circumstances, unfortunate events in their life, to not give up and to take that first step and to build resilience, because it's worth it. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Ghazi. Thank you so much. That gives me a lot of encouragement that you see this as a movie. I really, yeah.
So
And thank
we're
you.
winding.
Thank you, Charlotta. I appreciate that.
So we're winding down here. We have another 5 minutes, and I just want to invite Dr. Doran, if there's any other questions you might have, now would be a good time.
I just have a short question. Dr. Ed, who would you like to see play you in the movie?
Well, I would love my son to play me, but he has his own purpose in life. He has his own path, and I hate to put, but it has to be someone pretty good looking like me, #1. That was a joke, okay? No, but I would like to be involved as an advisor, consultant to the movie. But my hero growing up was Bruce Lee, because he was beating up bad guys. He won against 100. Although I knew it was fictional, but that was all I saw. That was the only Asian American that played a hero in any type of movie. Always been my hero. So I wanted someone that knows martial arts, because I am a lifetime practitioner of martial arts, because I grew up physically weak, and that was my weakness, and it's always been a chip on my shoulder to show up my weakness. So it's got to be someone, decent looking and knows martial arts, I would say.
I can't wait to see the movie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But I am in talks with a production company who actually produces pretty powerful plays for 18 to 25-year-old. They charge, I think, $2. So if I can raise the funds, and if I can, I'll fund it myself to have them make a play. And then what I'll do on the business side, I'm thinking, if I can get enough buzz out there, I'll license it and then make a movie out of that. And all the proceeds will go toward even more, something even greater. So that's kind of the long-term thinking. And then once I have that goal, then I just, walk the journey. And I know there will be detours along the way, but it's okay, because I've gotten used to headwinds blowing against you in life, and you just gotta factor that in and say, that's just part of life, part of the journey, and I'm just gonna learn the lesson. Might not be prevalent now, but looking back, I will understand why. Always happens that way.
Are there any other questions from the panel before we start winding down here? No? Well, thank you, Dr. Eng, for being here, for being our esteemed guest, for all the information you shared. It was all fascinating. I'm sure we can have you on and just talk some more. And we'll probably bring you back to talk about the consulting certificate here in the near future. But it was so eye-opening. It's such a pleasure just hearing your story and your narrative. So thank you. And thank you for the vulnerability, because I know it takes quite a bit to share your story as a result.
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous about that. After I wrote the book, I said, oh no, I said, I'll be, we're all human being after all. I said, okay, I'm going to be judged, but it's okay. As long as I can inspire one person, it's worth it. And now I feel more and more comfortable because people are sharing their stories on how it's impacted their life. There's a person that I just met. He has a water business where I get my alkaline water from. Calls me every day at from 2 to 2:15 because that's his break, and he cries every chapter. And he said, "God." And then I said, "So I've been talking to him for like 2 weeks straight, and he's almost done with the book." And I'll be honest, it's pretty vulnerable, but he says it's changing his life. So I'm pretty pretty happy about that. I find a lot of joy within that. I honestly do. And the feedback on Amazon, I only recognize 2 or 3 names on there. I don't recognize the rest of them. So these are people who actually read the book, bought it, and just felt the compelled to write about it. So I'm just really, I know it's making a difference, and it makes being vulnerable that much easier. And now really feel that people say view vulnerability as a strength, and I really begin to feel that. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Well, thank you
for
so
having
much.
me. Thank you for having me. It's great meeting all of you. I think our paths, I think, kind of crossed at the tail end of my doctoral journey, but we're always a Pepperdine family, right?
Yes, 100%. Thank you.
So,
With that, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. If you've enjoyed today's session, please remember to click the subscribe button. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you all next week.